Hey YouTube, I'm back with another video, and this one is going to actually be a two-parter. I know up front this is going to take a little bit of time, so there's no point even pretending this is going to be a nice quick video. Make it two. And what is it going to be? Well, as the title says, it's going to be the Master System Mini, a product that doesn't exist but Sega should make. So we've had the Mega Drive Mini, the Mega Drive Mini 2, we've even had those little mini Game Gear things. Plenty of licensed Master System games have been released over the years. We've had virtual console releases, we've had Coleco little mini handhelds, so it kind of feels like Sega are missing a trick in putting together a Master System Mini. And because these are often collectible things, they should really do it as boat models. So if they say, should it be the Mark 1, should it be the Mark 2, whatever, maybe they should actually do the Mark 3, the Japanese release Mini, and the Western release, and the Model 2. Why not do all three? Because even with the same games, people will probably collect them because they're that type of thing. So in terms of which one should it should be all of them. Now, as to the games, that is the interesting question. I've made a list here of 40 games that I think Sega could include, or would be a reasonable representation of what we would probably see. Usual type of rules apply for these type of mini systems. The chances of too many licensed games, not that great because you got to pay for them. So lean more into kind of Sega owned properties or Sega developed stuff. Few exceptions, and of course try not to have too much of one genre or underrepresent other genres, that type of thing, so you have an even spread of stuff. Anyway, as I said, this could get a little long, so I'm going to try and jump into it, and we'll break this into two parts, 20 and 20. So first up we have, I suppose, a bit of an odd one, maybe, Action Fighter. I always thought this was a magnifying glass. Turns out it's a rear view mirror. So this one is one of those kind of early titles, fun, simple arcade game, overhead kind of bike movement, and you transform into plane and all that sort of stuff. It's an early game, it's a simple game, but it's actually quite fun with some nice graphics. So it's one of those kind of like, not big hitters, but I think they might include it. Now, complete opposite end of the spectrum is what would be probably deemed a big hitter. It's Afterburner, the first 4 meg game. Obviously this was a big Sega superscaler, conversion. Honestly, Action Fighter might actually play better, and I think it is better tailored to the system. But this is a big name, and they did a reasonably decent job. So yeah, I'm pretty sure Sega would definitely include this. And if we have a Master System, there's no way they're going to leave out Alex Kidd America World. Like, this is basically first one on the list type of thing. It's became a sort of mascot, for the system. It was bundled in, like it was built into so many of the consoles. It's also a great game, and I think it has held up really well. Now, there are a few versions of this. I would actually like the later release where they swap the buttons, around, so it's more like Mario, because I don't like the original version. But maybe they'd give us both. But yeah, Alex has got to be on there. Next is another Alex game. Alex Kidd in Shinobi World. This is up there with Miracle World, and some would say even better than Miracle World. It's a combination of Alex Kidd and Shinobi, probably leaning more towards the Shinobi side. Great music, great sound, plays really, really well. It's a little short, a little easy, but yeah, just a really, really fun experience. Alex Kidd kind of got plugged in, like in Miracle World, in Shinobi World, into these other games, and the titles kind of said that, and it kind of, I can see how he would be seen as like this Mario kind of sub-placement hero. This is definitely, as I said, beyond Miracle World the best, and that's why I have not included Lost Stars or High Tech World. I think that would be a little too much, and their quality isn't quite as good as those two games. So let's just keep the best two. Or BMX Trial, come to think of it. So next one is one I would debate it on for a little while. Alien Syndrome. Another classic arcade game from Sega. The Master System version, though, it's an okay port. Like, it's solid, does the job. Dare I say it, the NES version might actually be better, even if the graphics are a bit rougher. It's still fun, though, and because of the Sega arcade connection, I think they'd include it. So, moving on, we have what could have been a licensed game, Fist and North Star, but isn't, due to having the branding removed back in the day. It's Black Belt, which is probably just as well, because now they can include it without having to pay for licenses. So Black Belt, combination scrolling fighter and one-on-one fighter. I am not a huge fan of this. I think some people really, really like it, and I do think Sega would include it because it was a bit of a hit back in the day. So yeah, it's going on the list, but it wouldn't be one that I'd be running to. Now I gotta move these games out of the way because I'm gonna get smoked by them. So next up is Bonanza Brothers. Sega love including Bonanza Brothers in compilations, at least for the Mega Drive version and stuff like that. So I think they would follow suit on a Master System. And to be honest, like in terms of ports, it is a reasonably close port, so why not? Um, yeah, it loses the two-player mode, and maybe some people would be disappointed by that, but I still think they'd include it. So now we have a licensed game, Castle of Illusion. Now, I debate between Castle of Illusion or Land of Illusion. I think Land of Illusion is the better game, but I think Castle of Illusion is the bigger name. So if Sega were going to get the license for one, I think they would do this. It's a great game either way. It may be better than a Mega Drive game. Yeah, the graphics aren't as good and whatnot, but honestly, it's right up there. And it's one of those, it's the same name, different game. You got to play this one too. So I would hope Sega would include one of the Illusion games. So I think this would also be a licensed game, yeah. Dan Gorlin, 1982, Borderborn Sulphur. I debated on this or Air Rescue. Maybe they would go with Air Rescue, which is a similar helicopter, game, because I don't think they need licensing. This is, of course, the bigger name and well regarded as a good port. So I leaned with this one, but it could be replaced. Next up, we have Dragon Crystal, a game I just find amusing for whatever reason, just talking about this musical nightmare on the back of the box. I'm pretty confident they would include this. They include Fatal Labyrinth on the Mega Drive Minis releases and Genesis collections and stuff like that. This is a very early console roguelike game, so it actually has a little bit of historical note. And for that type of game, for a console, it's not bad. So yeah, I could totally see them including this. And come on, you're not going to get a roguelike on the system without it. Next up was another one I wasn't sure of. It's eSWAT. Yeah, it's a decent enough arcade port. Changes a fair bit, as you'd expect, given the difference in hardware. There's probably better kind of run and gun or platform action games on the system, but given that Sega owned the license and owned the property, I should say, I do think they'd probably include it. Or at least it's in with a shout. Next up, we have a Mega Drive port, and it is Echo. Sega love Echo. We obviously tend to get them on the various Mega Drive compilations, and I think they would follow suit here. It's not a bad port if you like Echo the Dolphin. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Echo the Dolphin, so I won't be running to play this one, even though I think they did a good job on it. But I think it's the type of game that would get included, and I would actually hope it does. Some of these later release games I do hope get added in, because outside of, say, Europe and Australia and Brazil, most people wouldn't have had the chance to play them, or they wouldn't have had that much exposure. So I do hope a few of these get included, and so I'd include Echo. Next up, we have a racing game, another early one, another Sega Superscaler conversion, although this time they took it with an isometric view, Enduro Racer. It's an okay racing game. Plenty more I'd prefer on the platform, although some of them are licensed like Micro Machines, so I kind of steered away from them. Some people absolutely love it, so I do think it will be included. I would just hope that they give us the option to play as both the international version and the Japanese version, because the Japanese version has more stages. Sega cheaped out on that one. Next up, we have Fantasy Zone. I did consider including Fantasy Zone 2, either in combination or as a replacement, but this is probably the one that most people think of. It's a great port of the arcade, plays really well. Yeah, so you could have either or, but I'm convinced they would have it. I mean, the colors and everything just look great. It's a fun shooter and easy to kind of just break away. We've had a lot of action games and stuff like that, and having a few shooters is always good. So we're getting near the end of the first half, and next we have Game Ground. Game Ground is actually a really good game. I seen the Mega Drive version back in the day and thought that looked a bit crap, for a 16-bit game. And it was only after I played it a few years ago, I think it was for Retro Achievements, the Mega Drive version that is. I was like, oh, this is actually really good. There's quite a lot of depth behind this, and having to choose your characters, and they've got different methods of attack, some have long range, short range, and mobility options. So you do have to really consider what you do. Do you want to kill all the enemies, or do you just want to get everyone to the exit? Master's Inversion, it's obviously a bit cut down, but the graphics weren't that great to begin with, so it actually isn't too bad. Sports 2-player options, yeah, I think they like to include this in the Mega ones. I think they'd include it. Now, a recent Master System Challenge pick, Golden Axe. They would absolutely include Golden Axe. Sure, this is not as pretty or well, rounded, or loses the 2-player from the Mega Drive version and the arcade, but perhaps is closer to the arcade than it had any reason to for a game released in 1989. Yeah, it's another 4 meg cart. I'm not surprised, because they do quite a bit of sprites and stuff like that on it. It's a little choppy. It does take time to get used to, because it's not a very smooth playing game. But once you adapt to that, it actually is a pretty good experience. And now I'm looking at the back, they actually have a picture of the final boss on a Dead Adder, so go figure. So, running down now, we have another Golden Axe game. This is one that I really, really hope they would include, and I think they would, because it's basically Sega's answer to Zelda. So you want a Zelda clone on your system, you got Golden Axe Warrior. In some ways, you could even say it's better than Zelda. It has very nice graphics, it's a very big world, more of a story embedded into the game. It's, for me, the one thing that kind of annoyed me about it, and this is a fundamental flaw in the system, was that you do have to rely on the pause button quite a bit to go to menu and change things up. Yeah, when you're sitting right beside the console, not too bad. If you're further away, it's a bit of a pain. Now, obviously, they could rectify that with a mini. They could come up with some other kind of button or hidden button to do the pause, instead of having to press a button on the console. But this is well worth checking out. It's also kind of pricey, so I would hope they would include it just to help collectors out a bit. And moving on to another racing game. This one, I'm sure that this was bundled in. It was an early system seller. I know people might not think, was it really a system seller? You have to remember that, like, Hang On in the arcade was a pretty big game. Like, yeah, it had the Ride On Motorcycle. It was a big name to get converted, and if you compare it to the other kind of racing games around that time, like, it was much, much better. So for today, it's quite simple, but it still holds up and plays really well. It's a really smooth playing game. Controls quite nicely, and yeah, it's. I mean, I got the cartridge version here, but this is a card release, and to be honest, they might actually include a few games like that, and perhaps show the artwork for the card to kind of highlight there was card games too on these systems. But I think it's a no-brainer to include. Now, I have two more before we finish this set, and the reason why I left these bundled together is because I kind of have them as either ors. Now, the first one is puzzles, and my instinct is columns. I think Sega would include columns, because they love columns, and they include it in everything. But part of me thought, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Machines. I don't think they would do both. I think we would get one or the other. I probably prefer, as a general concept and game, Puyo Puyo, which is Mean Machines. But if anything, I think Column seems a little better tailored to the platform. So, it's one of those things. It's a toss of a coin. You could get either, and I think it'd be a good choice either way. Now, the final one, it's going down the shooters approach, and this is going down licensed games. So, I know we had Fantasy Zone, and probably have other shooters, but some of the best were licensed, and one of those was R-Type. This is a very good port of the Irem Classic. So again, yeah, it has to be licensed, which is why I wasn't sure, but it was on the back of the box. And that's also important too. So the Master System 2 box, which perhaps I should have gotten out for this, I'm pretty sure had a picture of R-Type on the back. It had Golden Axe, it had World Soccer and a few others. But as a third-party game, R-Type was clearly well regarded. Now, the alternative would be Power Strike 2, another very well regarded third parties compile shooter. They're quite different, and you can't go wrong with either. I don't think we'd get both. This one is, of course, quite expensive and hard to come by, so there's something to be said from the collector's aspect of it'd be nice if they included this, whereas while this is, you know, not cheap, it's easier to get, it's much more common. So yeah, I think we might get one of these. We certainly, I don't think we'll get both, but that would be nice. But anyway, that's the first half. So I'd love to know what you think. I will do a part 2 with the remaining half of the collection and perhaps a few, you know, bonus, you know, well if they threw in this type of stuff to end off. So yeah, we'll leave it there for now. Love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and we'll be back soon.